hard time getting people to respect your boundaries at the workplace, you're probably doing one of two things. You're saying yes far more than you wish to and you'd rather really say no, or you're so concerned about the other person's happiness that you don't recognize that you're actually suffering yourself, and it's starting to show up because there's tension. Now in this video, I'm going to teach you how to set boundaries and stick to them, and we're going to cover 3 things. And this is going to help you move away from that people-pleasing personality to setting healthy boundaries. Hi, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Tammy and I am your guide to handling difficult conversations with confidence so you can keep your relationship intact. As we're sitting here together hanging out in the venue of your choice, maybe we're in your living room or in your room or in a coffee shop, I kind of want to get to know who I'm hanging out with. So I feel like an introduction is in order, don't you? In the comments below, just drop a hello, let me know where you're watching from, and in particular, I'd love to know why this topic is important to you today. What's going on in your life that you picked this video to help you? Now, let's get into the topic of the day. Boundaries is massive. It's so important. It comes up in every conflict, and we don't always use language around boundaries, but I can promise you that there's a boundary that has been breached or is on the verge of being breached, and that's why there's tension. And the reason it comes up so much is that in our society, we've been conditioned to be nice, to play nice in the sandbox, to say nothing if we don't have anything good to say. And so as a result, we tend not to express our boundaries for fear that it's going to harm somebody else. When you were a child, if you recall, as you were playing with your toys and company came over, your parents likely told you very quickly, share your toys, let them have a turn, and you maybe weren't ready to give it up yet, but we as parents don't ask our children, are you done with it? Would you like to share? Do we need to put this toy away? And I can tell you, my son learned very quickly. When we had company coming over, he would put all of his prized possessions away in his room and close the door. They weren't allowed in there because he wanted to protect those things. And I'll share with you as a nurse, so if any of you are nurses out there, you know you have a favorite pen. And so when somebody needs a pen and I have to relinquish this, I'm watching you because I want to make sure I get it back, right? I don't always want to give you my pen, but I will definitely be kind, but I'm going to be paying attention because I want it back. And so these are the boundaries that we often don't notice are around until they've been bumped. So let's start with defining just what a boundary is. And it's actually quite broad, which is probably part of the reason why we have some struggles talking about them, because simply said, it's really our comfort within a relationship. Pretty much, right? It's the level which we feel comfortable at a given moment and within the context in which we find ourselves with another person. Now, if you consider your boundaries like a hula hoop, say, and you have it around your waist and you carry it around with you, as you bump into people, you notice, hey, that's my boundary, that's my space boundary. Or maybe you're a little bit more interested in them, so you shift that hula hoop so you can get a little closer to them, right? So these things are flexible, they move. So let's look at some of the examples. We have physical boundaries. So in the workplace, this might come in terms of the office walls. If you don't have doors and walls, you've got cubicles, so there's dividers. And if you don't have that, you might have tape on the floor to identify this is my space, this is your space. But it's also about our bodies, right? So I'm quite comfortable with touch, but I've had students who say, no, I don't actually like it when you put your hand on my shoulder, or we do a hugging exercise in class and they get permission to not hug. And there are people who are like, no, this is my body, I'm not comfortable. So physical boundaries are about body and privacy and personal space. There's emotional and mental boundaries. So what would be appropriate for you and me as we interact with each other? How do we treat each other? How do people talk to us? How do they treat us? Another category would be financial and material. So in an organization, there's only so much money. So who gets the corner office? Who gets the promotion? Who gets the raise? Who's going on the training? Those kind of things. This is all about resource allocation, right? So these are boundaries that can cause issues among other people. And of course, there's another big one, and that's time. We're going to talk about time a little bit more today, but time boundaries is our prioritization, how we use time. For example, you might be a person who blocks time in your calendar so that between 9 and 10 every morning you're doing emails, and between 10 and 11 you're walking around connecting with people, and you block your time, and that's really important to you. Or your colleague may be the kind who's just like, door open, anything goes, and they'll work through it as it comes. These are boundaries that we don't notice until somebody comes in and is trying to push them, change them, or cross them. Now, of course, there's many other types of boundaries, so as we work through this, you're going to get an opportunity to share with me in the comments what type of boundaries you see typically happening in your organization. Now, as I said, we often don't notice them. As long as things are going well, we don't know which boundaries are at play until somebody tries to challenge them. And part of the reason we don't notice them is because they do flex. Now, I want to give this to you as an example. When I was working as a teacher, we didn't have walls. I thought we were going to have these beautiful offices when I got hired on, but nope. We just had a whole bunch of desks and chairs in a big area. And when I needed to do focused work, I didn't want people stopping by and chatting with me. And so I would put up boundaries to show that this is my space and this is my priority and this is how I want to use my time. And so I would put signs on the back of my chair saying, marking, do not disturb. I would have ear pods in, and if somebody came, I would just like, no, I can't talk right now, because I was really focusing on getting a task done. Now, the next day when the marking was done, all of those boundaries came down, and I would be willing to have a coffee chat with somebody or to engage in small conversation as somebody passes by. So what changed? The people are the same. The environment is the same, but my context changed. And so my boundaries need to flex with that in order to support me. And that's why I want you to remember that as you go through, because depending on who you're with, what you're talking about, how you're feeling, what your goals are, all of these will shift our boundaries, even those so-called never ever cross boundaries. So let's first talk about how to identify a boundary, because if we can't identify it, it's really difficult to talk about it. So step one is really to figure out what's going on. Which boundary am I feeling is at risk? Now, because this often shows up when we're frustrated, when we start to feel a little bit on edge, let's just take a pause and take a step back and ask myself, is what I'm doing the right thing for me? And should I be doing this right now? And if the answer is no, then this is the critical question to ask, why not? And this is going to help identify the boundary that you're having a struggle with. So perhaps you might go, oh, I just don't have the time to take on this extra work right now. We're looking at a time boundary or a prioritization. Perhaps you're like, I don't have the finances to take this on right now. We're looking at a financial boundary. Maybe you're just not interested. Maybe you don't have the resources or the manpower, or you just don't know how. And so when you start to ask yourself, okay, if I don't want to do this right now, why is that? You get really clear on the boundary, and then we get to communicate it. So step two is we're going to go deeper now and get to the root of the boundary. So you've identified that this isn't the best thing for you to do right now. And you've kind of started to peel back the layers as to why. So maybe it's not time, it's money, it's interest, it's ability. Now we're going to go one step deeper. One more layer in, one step deeper. And I want you to ask yourself, why does this boundary matter now? And why do I need to communicate it and have it be respected? This is important because you now have recognized, say it's time, for example, I don't have time to give this project, so I'm feeling a lot of stress about this request. What does that mean for you? If I'm saying yes to your request, what am I saying no to? That's one way to ask yourself to get to that next layer of depth. Maybe you just simply feel like you've given too much to somebody who always takes. And this is now the point where you're like, I just can't. The reservoir is dry. There's nothing more for me to give. I have lost my desire to help you because that reciprocity is not there. It's important to get down to the root. Perhaps you're just burnt out. You've got nothing left to give because you've been going full tilt. And if this is, if you're in healthcare, then and if you're in retail, you guys have been out there too on the front lines serving people, that this COVID stuff ain't no joke. And it has been wearing on you physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and there's nothing left, right? So just one small more request is too much. Perhaps it's going to put you in a hole financially. Maybe Joe keeps coming to you for some lunch money because he keeps saying, I get paid in 2 weeks, but I haven't got anything on me. Can you loan me some money? And the kind heart that you are says, sure, Joe, I'll buy you lunch today, on the premise that that money's coming back to you, but it never does. Well, here he comes again asking for money, and you're just like, wow, if I say yes to you, I can't pay my power bill. Know the why. Get deep, deep, deep. Because then when that request comes in, you are confident and capable to say, I can't give you lunch money today, Joe. and you will know why. And if they ask, you can communicate why because you've done that step, right? So the first step was to find out what boundary is at odds right now. Ask the next important question is, should I be doing this right now? Is this good for me? And if the answer is no, ask why. And then go another layer deep as to what would it mean for me to say yes to them and no to me. Now, in the comments below, let me know what kind of boundaries are coming up for you as we talk about this. Thinking about all those relationships you're in conflict with right now. What is happening? What is the crux of the issue? Is it time? Is it money? Is it values? Is it beliefs? Is it spirituality? What is going on that's causing you to feel like you need to resolve this conflict? All right, so we are clear now that this is a decision we should not be taking to support another person because it's going to take away from us. So we've decided this isn't the best thing for us to do right now, and we now know why. I'm going to share with you the 3-step process to communicate those boundaries, and then I'm going to give you some scripts using an example. The first step is to become clear on which boundary is at stake, and we already took care of that information looking at those last series of questions. Step 2 is to be calm. Now I know that may seem weird because we're calm right now, but I can tell you in the moment when those boundaries are crossed, there's a lot of emotion happening. And so take some time. Take 6 deep breaths if you need to. That's a really fast, less than 1 minute strategy to help de-escalate the tension and the stress. And it connects you with your parasympathetic brain or your parasympathetic system. And so with that, you can calm down and reduce the energy when you need to talk to somebody. Did you see how magical that was just on me? It's so important. Now, if you need more time, if those 6 breaths, deep inhales and long exhales do not work to calm you down enough to talk about it, request an adjournment. We call this a pause in my program. Give a time out, go for a walk, come back tomorrow if you need to, but make sure that when you do talk about your boundaries, you're coming from a place of calm, that you know with clarity why you need to have this conversation, and that it's so important for the relationship, because when we come in calm, we then have a better chance of keeping the relationship intact. And the third step is to simply be consistent. When a boundary is being violated, find the reason why you feel this way, why it's important to you, and come and approach it and have a conversation. Recognizing that you need to clarify, today, for me, in the situation we find ourselves in, this is where I'm at. So I just want to talk quickly about rigid versus flexible versus relational boundaries. And the example I'm going to use to help highlight this is driving. So it's a common one people can relate to, right? There's a speed limit. And as you're driving on your normal days when things are good, you don't speed. There's no need to speed. And people will often say, oh, I don't speed. It's a fixed, rigid boundary. I never do that. I don't do that. But when they're late for work, it becomes a little more flexible. And they might say, oh, I only sped like 10 over because I was late for work and I needed to get here. So they are making a justification as to why that boundary is okay to cross for them in the context of the situation. Now they're also relational. Now maybe their best friend or best colleague, John, shows up at the light and he's like revving his engine. And you're like, oh, I'm up for the challenge, a little banter before we get to work. I only sped because John challenged me and I gotta show up, you know? And so you see how boundaries can be rigid, flexible, and relational. And so when you say those never words, I just caution you to really look at that and ask yourself, is this really a rigid boundary? Or do I flex it when it suits me? And this is why boundaries are so challenging sometimes to implement and to communicate, because we know that they move just like our hula hoop around our waist. We know that they're going to change. So the consistency comes in being clear about, in this context, this is where I'm at. So next, let's talk about what to say when you need to revisit a boundary that has already been fractured. This is probably the most common scenario because we've had an interaction, we've said yes when we wanted to say no, or we've put their needs ahead of ours because we're so focused on their happiness. And now we're sitting there going, I don't think I like this. So there is a moment where we can go back and revisit this and close that boundary and communicate what we really would like to have. Let's revisit a conversation, say with John, about the $20 that he likes to borrow for lunch. You can simply go back and say, you know what, John, I've been thinking about this and I can't lend you money anymore. And end it there. Yes, I know, you're expecting me to say more because we are conditioned to give more information. We feel like we need to give the rationale and the reason so that they still like us. But we don't have to give it. You can simply just say, I've reconsidered and I can't support the request. And let the silence hang. Now, if it is so in you and you just feel so compelled to say more, you can certainly just say what it was about your whiffing factor that was important. So you might say, you know, John, I've been thinking about this and I can't give you lunch money anymore because I'm having a hard time paying my bills at home. Bam! You don't have to say any more than that. You've established the boundary, you've revisited a chronic situation, and now you know what's going to happen going forward. Now the key is, remember, we were clear, we were calm, we have to be consistent. So if he comes to us next week and says, oh my God, like I'm starving, I need $5, can you give me even just $5? You need to be consistent. No, I told you last week, John, I can't support your lunch anymore. I'm having a hard time paying my own bills, remember? So you can continue to be consistent. Maybe you've come into a windfall and you go, you know what, actually, I just made $40 on the lottery last night. Let me buy you lunch today. Be very clear about the boundary in which you are entering into. So that's what you can do to revisit a boundary. You just come back and simply share, I've reconsidered, I'm not able to support you at this time. So now let's look at it when we're in the moment and we feel a little uncomfortable with the request. How can we avoid saying yes to something we don't want to say yes to? I've got you covered. So let's just pretend John comes back up to you for that $20 and you're like, I don't want to do this. Oh my gosh, if I do, I told him yesterday I can't, and if I do it today, well then he's never going to believe me again. So here's what you do. You simply say, you know what, I might be able to do that. Can I think about this and get back to you? That buys you time to step back and go, okay, is this a good decision for me? Does this feel like the right thing for me to do? If the answer is no, why not? And then go one more layer deep to find out what would it mean to me if I did not honor this boundary? What am I losing? And so then you can come back and clearly engage in the conversation. Right? So it's simply just a matter of saying, let me think about that and I'll get back to you, or I might be able to help you. Let me just think about this for a while, or I need to consult with somebody else. Can I get back to you? That's all you need to do, is buy yourself some time to step away and think about really what's in your best interest. Now, here's where they might push you and go, oh, but I really need the answer now. Like I've got no more time left. You're the only person I can ask. A lot of guilt gets put on a person in those moments. So what do you do next? If they push, here's something that you can say that's super simple, but it still respects your boundary. Listen, I want to thank you for thinking of me as the person you can come to. I can sense you're in a real bind. If you need an answer sooner than I can give it to you, you're going to have to find someone else to support you. Boom. Done. You still are consistent. I can't give you a decision right now. You are clear. I need my time. And you are calm. Clear, calm, consistent. For the win. So there you go. In this video, we covered 3 important steps, and I gave you a process to follow so that you can communicate your boundaries with confidence and stick to them, based on the context, knowing that they're flexible. Now you can stay connected with me in the Facebook group. There's a link below in the description box where we do live training every week there, and you can come in and ask your questions and engage with me there. And if you're ready to start a program that will help you get out from underneath the negative effects of chronic conflict, workplace bullying, that's going to help you put your career back on track, reclaim your reputation that you have worked so hard for, and get you back to being a productive member at the workplace again, check the link in the description box. You can book a free consultation call with me. We're going to talk for about an hour, and I'm going to find out where you're at, where do you want to go, and what the heck is getting in the way. So at the end of that, you're going to have a clear plan as to what your next steps are. Whether that's with me or with somebody else or on your own, doesn't matter. That is available to you as well. And just to make sure you have some support in the meantime, there's a free download called the 10 Safe Conversational Starters Often our boundaries are broken in these moments of offensive behaviors at work that we don't step into. So whether someone is rolling their eyes at you, or they're sabotaging you, they're backstabbing you and breaking confidences, there is 10 common offenses we see in the workplace, and for each one I have a script for you. So in the description box below, there's a link. Go ahead, click on that. It's free. It's a guide to help you start having conversations that are safe and will help you communicate your boundaries. So that's it, guys. Here is your last task, your last mission, should you choose to accept it. Comment below if you haven't already and let me know how this is helping you. And if you go away and you implement this, come back. Make sure you subscribe to this channel so that you can find me and let me know how things are working for you. I'd also love it if you would share this with 5 friends. Why? I'm trying to grow my channel, and I know that people just like you need to hear this message. That's why I'm here. I want to support people. So share it with 5 friends, let them know about this channel. Oh, and don't forget to like this video as well. That's all part of the YouTube algorithm, and it helps YouTube actually push this out to even more people than your 5 friends. So remember, my friends, you are only one conversation away.